Join us on Saturday, July 12th at the University of Illinois Chicago campus for the inaugural Higher Education Podcast Conference. Get your tickets today at higheredpodcon.com. That's Higher Ed PodCon. Stay ahead of the conversation in higher ed. Get early, ad-free access, and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe. $5.99 per month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Ed Up Experience podcast. I am your host, Dr. Jody Blinko. Join with me today is my co-host, Charlie Anastasi, VP of Partnerships at RISE. And we have our guest with us, Dr. Kelly A. Ryan, Eastern Oregon. She is president. Excuse me, I cannot forget that important piece. She is the president of Eastern Oregon University. Welcome, Dr. Ryan. Thank you for being here with us today. Tell us a little bit more about your institution. Educate us.
Happy to. So Eastern Oregon University is located on the frontier of Oregon. So it's on the eastern side, as the name suggests, and it's extraordinarily rural. We live in a town of about 13 to 16,000 people, depending on the time of the year. You can guess that we influence that. And we're surrounded by a few small local communities, but generally speaking, the next town is about 50 miles away. Right. So we call it the frontier in addition to being rural because of that. And so as a result of our somewhat geographical isolation, we have a really robust online programming. So we have about 50-50 online to in-person students. And as you can imagine, being the state's rural institution, we have a special mission to serve Oregon's rural population, which generally speaking is going to be less likely to attend college, persist in college, and graduate in college. So that's the kind of gas that keeps our motor running, and really our whole community comes around in terms of mission.
Very nice. Charlie, I'm going to kick it over to you. I know you have a whole list of questions that you want to ask Dr. Ryan.
Always, right, Jody? Well,
Yes.
It's great to be back on the EdUp Experience as a co-host. And one of the things that I was researching before is just this designation of rural university. I thought that was really cool and a place that I wanted to spend a bit of time. And as I saw that, it brought me back to the Hechinger report. They did a number of articles over the last, I think it's probably a couple of years now, on rural education. And there was this stat that just grabbed me, which is that 21% of rural Americans have a bachelor's degree compared to 35% who live in urban places. And you just started to sort of hit on it in terms of the gas that keeps your engine running. So what are some of the things, like you're facing a different challenge than other institutions? How do you think about making sure that more students who could benefit from a college degree take that first step? And then from what I can see, you're doing a lot to make sure that it's not just the first step, that they're making it all the way across the line. So there's a lot in there, but you're sort of looking at a situation where you're trying to figure out how you get more people to start and finish. And I'm wondering what some of those things look like.
Right. So thank you. That's a great question. So I think, again, like our rurality and our geographical isolation meant that historically EOU has kind of twin strategies. Part of it has been that online piece, because online isn't just about flexibility when we're talking about a place like this, right? It's also about access. If EOU hadn't been offering online degrees, even including sending videotapes in the 80s and 90s across the state, people weren't going to be able to get access to education. You cannot ask individuals to drive 2 hours to attend classes when they're an adult looking to upskill. And so for us, our online mission is really one about equity. It's about making sure that all Oregonians have access to education. And then on the other side, our online population versus our in-person population, those are different age groups, right? So the age group of our in-person students is really 18 to about 25. And then our online students are 25 to 50. They're reskilling, they're upskilling. And for our in-person students, we have to serve them in ways that's really meaningful, in the same ways many others do. We need to connect to their careers. But in rural America, that means offering degrees like agricultural entrepreneurship alongside history, theater, music, and the arts to make sure that we're serving the diverse interests in our communities that many people, don't often think about. It means having a really vital campus experience, but it also means we're serving a lot more first generation students than other universities, right? And it means that when our students go home, they're not always receiving the same message that they're receiving at university. We need to constantly share with them, what is the value of your degree? Both on you personally, we know that that's personally transformative, but sending those reminders, right? I think one of the major losses we've seen nationwide is that lack of a monoculture. That lack of a monoculture means that these pockets have emerged that have really allowed for non-fact-based discussions about the value of higher education and how we go about creating degrees that are affordable and the best ways to do that. And so finding ways to interrupt those discussions through personal relationships are some of the critical things that we do here at university.
A lot of what you're sort of hitting on there is retention. And I saw even that retention took a step up in the last year. And so what does that look like on your campus? Part of it sounds like is conversation, and it's ensuring that you're not just thinking about the student, but who does that student live with, and what is that family conversation? But any other things that have been going on your campus that you think have really been a lift to retention?
Yeah, I would say it kind of starts with, so we had a strategic plan that was built in 2016, and no shade, but the world has changed a lot since 2016. So when I arrived, we really needed to adjust that, right? We're no longer in a space where we can look at rural demographics or nationwide college going rates, where we can just add thousands onto enrollment numbers and say, hooray, we're going to get there through the magic of positive thinking. And so what our community did is we came together, over 55 individuals on this campus, created strategies to help us see students across the finish line. So we focused on student success, financial sustainability, enrollment growth, and then, of course, our own university life and welfare. And we really focused in on student success as our primary goal as an institution and as a community. It's the reason why we get up in the morning, even when, sometimes you just want to throw the covers over your face again, right? It's the thing, again, it's just the gas in our pumps, and everybody in our community is jazzed about it. So we created, basically 5 new initiatives that we're working on to try and bring about more student success. The first is vitality, right? So how do we engage our online learner and our in-person learner through an exciting campus life? How do we get our benefits navigator to work with students who are online and face-to-face when they're running into issues around transportation, around food insecurity, around housing insecurity? The second is thinking about how can we better serve students with questions, given that so many of our students are first generation. So we created a one-stop shop so that students come in and there is just someone with a big old smile on their face that lets them know that questions are welcome. We're at a university. Everybody should be helpful in answering people's questions. And so this one-stop shop helps students navigate what is a difficult environment when you can't always ask mom and dad about a situation, right? And then we've also revitalized our mentoring system, trying to make sure that, again, we have that wraparound support for our students, and we're looking at mental health. We have this amazing faculty member, Dr. Kelly McNeil, who has, through her students in our program, issued a survey to our students and asked them, what are your anxiety levels? Are you sleeping at night? And this survey gave them really robust information that's helping them deliver a program to our students free of charge, just through a Canvas site that gives them actionable skills online, on campus, to just make a difference in their life. Go outside, touch grass, meditate for a minute is better than not, right? Finding ways to focus on yourself. So those are some of the things that we're doing to really boost student success.
One of the things that you're sort of really getting a sense for as you answer, one with your energy, is just the culture shift that I think you're probably trying to bring. And sometimes if we talk about student success, like a lot of this is data, like we need to get in the data, but I'm hearing words like vitality and smiles and mentoring and mental health. So yeah, I'm sure there's data behind all of this, but can you talk a little about like the cultural element that's really important here?
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, right? COVID taught us that humans, even the most, introverted among us, we need human connection to survive and thrive. And we should never forget that. And truly, the good work of our university, student to student, student to staff, student to faculty, student to administration, it's all about our interconnectedness. It's all about our personal relationships. We can send a million emails a day, text messages, but unless we're literally here for each other as fully formed, holistic individuals, unless we're ready to serve the student who can't get a ride to campus, who's working and is also going to school online when they can find 15 minutes of free time, then we're truly not serving. And you're right, of course, data, when we did the Ascent strategies, we asked each of the teams to develop best practices based on national programs that have been working. But the human touch, particularly in a rural community, in an intimate community, it's just all the difference in the world. If we just take each of our roles, as we sit and communicate with each other here this morning, I think each of us would agree that the best parts of our day is when we're in tune and in touch with another person, not siloed. Not siloed. Siloed, these behaviors, isolation, they lead to burnout, right? So this people to people work is critical.
Yeah. And Jody, please feel free to jump in. I'm very good at keeping a mic once it's handed to me.
All I would say is you're speaking my language, Dr. Ryan. I love this. This is my thing. So I love that everything that you're talking about. But go ahead, Charlie. I'll pop in here or there.
Well, maybe I have a comment, and then I'll turn it over to you, Jody. Which is one of the things that we've noticed in some of the work that I get to be a part of is there's a lot of data out there about programs, sort of what you were mentioning, Dr. Ryan, and cybersecurity's hot. This program's hot, this program's not. But we get the chance to work across a lot of different schools, and the thing that you're not going to see in BLS data or Lightcast data is there is huge variation that we can't explain that we think comes from who is the program director, who is the human providing the human touch when the student gets on campus and so there's just so much to bringing a program to life that's not just going to be the data that, of course, these two things need to interact with each other, but that just it really resonated with me the way you're talking about it.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I remember early on in my presidency here, and we have a program called Health and Human Performance, which the aforementioned Dr. McNeil is a part of. And they shared with me that I should be expecting declines in this program in the coming years because national trends suggest such and such and this and that. But early on, when I had accepted this job, I came to a board meeting, and I think 3 of the faculty came together and shared the student to faculty research that was being conducted. And the over 400 student athletes that I have on this campus. And to your point, I think we consistently underestimate the power of an engaged and compassionate faculty member. I will never forget the early parts of my career when I walked into history classrooms full of students who didn't want to hear about George Washington for the billionth time, but left my class saying, I really actually didn't realize, but I like history because you brought energy or you cared about me as a person. And that's what the health and human performance faculty, the psychology faculty, history faculty, all those individuals here are doing. They're letting students know they care and they're reaching out to them. And it's just a vital relationship on any university.
And I can't imagine this energy and passion around the health and wellness and investment just stops at your students or is just channeled toward your students. I would imagine that you turn a lot of this inward to your staff, to your faculty. Can you share a little bit about that? Angle of this with us?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Eastern Oregon University is not dissimilar to other regional universities throughout the United States. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of hurt that comes from assaults on higher education in these various pockets. There's a lot of hurt that comes from declining budgets when enrollment declines occur, when that isolation occurred during COVID. And that means that we also have to pay attention to our university welfare, our people, our greatest investment. And part of our strategies last year was building out how do we solve the issues that have historically occurred right here and kind of right now. And so a couple of things emerged from that. The first was creating a better onboarding experience. And we have a team of individuals who are working on building that up and making sure that we have connections, individual to individual, for our new employees so that they can feel a kind of more of a connection to each other and really a connection to our mission, our brand, who we are. But it goes much deeper than that. We also historically have taken part in the Great Colleges to Workforce survey. And I will share with you that one of the disappointing things that early on I saw was that there was a lot of healing. There's a need for a lot of healing on this campus, not only because of these problems that are being experienced nationwide, but also because of the situational context here. And so early on, really building out a robust communication campaign, sending, weekly emails from me, just giving shout outs to people who are doing incredible work, letting people know what I'm doing so they don't think, I have some secret meetings where I'm trying to undermine the power and good fortune of individuals, so working on communication, having Coffee with Kelly series, anyone can come share their perspective. That's open. Making sure that we're collaborating as much as possible in our decision making. Still, though, obviously, I am the president. I do have to own the responsibilities. And there's also I think, one thing that really came out of the survey was a deep desire for more professional development. And one of the really, sad things about the declining budgets in higher education is, that's among the first things to get cut, of course, right? Is our attention to the development of our people. And so we've been doing a couple of things. One, we've been kind of responding to the perception of the administration by engaging in professional development for ourselves, for the executives on campus. For example, working through the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And then the other thing that we've been doing is there was clearly a need to get some professional development to our middle managers. But a lot of that does connect with the earlier conversation we had, which is like, how do you show up at work? Whatever was at home with you, you are bringing with you. There's
whether you realize it or not. Yeah.
Right. There's no magic that happens from the shower to the Zoom or from the walk from your car to the campus. And really long-term ways we deal with problems, even going all the way back to our families of origin, these are brought with us. And so we've used Brene Brown's Dare to Lead series with our middle managers this year, just to really connect with what is vulnerability? What is shame? How are we showing up? How are we engaging in conversations respectfully? How are we sharing our voice while also like staying true to our mission and our team? And so I think that these are some of the ways that we can start tackling some of these issues, and it creates an openness, I think, given again that so many regional universities are struggling. Do we have to carry that in our hearts? I wonder about that. If, for example, we have an enrollment loss, does that mean that what we did last year had no value? I think we need to really have more conversations about the systemic issues that higher education, faculty, staff, leaders are facing. Yes, we have accountability. Yes, we're always going to need to improve and try something new, but we can't walk around with shame, right? We have to work on solutions, not blaming. And unfortunately, when we are in moments of scarcity, that's what comes out. And so, finding ways to have these discussions to say, hey, nothing wrong happened here, but let's think about how we can do something different, given that the world is changing every 15 minutes.
Yes. I so appreciate you're humanizing the processes that happen in the day-to-day. When you talk about like the example that you shared what happens if enrollment or retention or whatever indicator we're looking at doesn't go the way that we had hoped it would gone, or maybe we don't reach the benchmark that we had set for ourselves. I would agree wholeheartedly that I think there's an impact that happens there in the human spirit, that whether culturally we are creating that by saying, oh, well, we need to do better next time, and why didn't we, if we are inflicting some of that, or if we're not, we're being super supportive, as you said, and saying, okay, let's identify the gap and let's work to solve for that differently. I just so appreciate that you are aware of, you talk about carrying the shame, or there are emotions that come with that. And as leaders, it is our responsibility to create cultures and environments that foster that growth, that development, but also helping people just move through the day to day with the human stuff that we bring along with us. As you said, it doesn't shut off when you walk from the car to the building. We're still that person. And I think from my experience in consulting and working with institutions, I don't often see leaders or institutions that are embodying that all the way around and really have a handle on what that means for the individual, not just the role that they're playing, but the whole human being. So I'm curious if you would be willing to share a little bit more of your background with us on, obviously this passion comes from somewhere, this spark to really meet the human being where they are comes from somewhere. So would you be willing to share a little bit more about how that's come for you?
There's still time. Join us on Saturday, July 12th at the University of Illinois Chicago campus for the inaugural Higher Education Podcast Conference. Get your tickets today at higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com. See you in Chicago. If you're finding value in these conversations, consider supporting Elvin and Joe. As a supporter, you'll get early ad-free access, plus exclusive leadership-focused content. It's only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or even gift a subscription to a colleague at edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com.
Gosh, I guess, probably family of origin stuff, right?
Yeah.
My father was in the military, and my mom worked hard to keep us fed and going to school and focused. We were moving every 1 to 2 years, which means I probably met more people by the time I was in 12th grade than people meet their whole lives.
Yeah.
And so I do think it sort of shapes your character. And then I would say the other thing that I've really seen, particularly in my time as a professor, is the impact of knowledge, the impact of a professor. I was teaching in a suburban community that, kind of hinged upon a rural area. And, young women came to me and said, I've never had a woman role model. I've never learned about women in the American Revolution. And I think that the power of those conversations has always really struck me. And I also think too, I know that, we are in a divided state as a nation, but the one thing that we have always truly agreed on until very recently was the transformative effect of higher education on the individual. After World War II, we dug in and said, we're going to be the best. We're not even fooling around. We are going to be the very best. And what did that mean? That meant investing in university. It meant investing in the individual, and it meant helping people find a way to help themselves. There are no handouts in this. If a student gets a loan from the federal government or gets a Pell Grant, they still have to work every day for 4 to 6 years to get that degree. That was not for free. And I do think that we have lost something in the shift if we're no longer helping individuals help themselves. I'm getting very political. Apologies.
I love it. No, it's good. I love the passion. Yeah.
This is what human beings should do. I mean, we are not going to reflect upon our times in our 60s and 70s and said, why didn't I do more for myself? That's absolutely not going to happen unless unless we are, I think, working for the good of all to be better, to be their best, we really just haven't served. We haven't lived, and we haven't made connections that matter.
Yeah. Charlie, I know you got a list. Go for it.
Well, I like sort of going a little bit back into your history. And so I'm also curious, you spent a lot of time at Indiana University. I think, what called you to Eastern Oregon?
Well, I think opportunity. I think that was probably the very most important thing. I really wanted to continue in a presidential level role. And this was one of the opportunities that put forward. This was a mission-oriented university. I think you can spend about 2 minutes with me and see that unless it's mission-oriented, I can't show up. I just cannot be interested. And it was very clear that this was a mission-oriented institution. And I think when you think about the last 20 years in American history, one of the things I think we're going to look back on, and we're going to see this rural-urban divide, rural-urban-suburban divide as the most salient features of our new political world and these kind of mini cultures that have emerged. And unless I'm part of that solution, unless I'm getting my hands dirty in rural America, unless I'm, helping individuals transform their lives, it was very attractive to me. It was very attractive. I don't want to be part of a huge university. Relationships really matter to me. And I can't access students. Once you go above about 5,000 students, it's going to get harder and harder. Everything's going to be more and more refracted. It's going to be harder and harder for me to have individual conversations with just faculty, staff, whatever. I mean, it's already hard, truth be told.
Yeah.
But, I find I'm able to prioritize that. But I really, I couldn't believe more that this rural-urban divide is the thing that's segmenting us, among other issues, but that's certainly one of them.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking to you from a Zoom screen in Brooklyn, New York, so I can't claim to know tons about what it would be like to operate an institution in a rural environment. But having worked with some institutions in those areas, what I've heard, and you can tell me this is not your lived experience, is that recruiting can be challenging. So it's not just recruiting of students, but recruiting of faculty, recruiting of staff. Now, there's plenty of people who I think would love to be at Eastern Oregon and not at an urban center. But how have you tried to think about recruiting, and has that been something that you've made a focus of getting the right people to your campus?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right that finding talent to work at the university, it does take longer in a rural environment. Just taking, for example, the closest major airport is 2.5 hours away, right? That's something someone has to consider if they're moving across the country for a role. And so, yes, talent development. And if you're someone who in their free time, wants to enjoy shopping, well, the Walmart's not going to cut it, right? So it is a particular individual, and the kinds of people that are going to be attracted to Eastern Oregon are people who love the outdoors, right? People like me who spend their weekends hiking, who just want to kind of live in nature. And I think, so we are lucky to have really high employee retention. And of course, that's related to this other factor that I think you're kind of getting at. And we're one of the largest employers in Eastern Oregon, right? So that looks really different. One of the things that higher education leaders hear a lot about is, who are your workforce partners? And that's something I worked on quite a bit at Indiana University Southeast. And, that was sort of an easier fix. But if you look at Oregon's economy, Eastern Oregon's economy, particularly in Eastern Oregon, the next kind of largest employer is my local hospital, and then the state of Oregon, right? And so, you really have to think differently, and that challenge can be exciting, right? Depending on how you think about it. But it's not about going to the company down the street and saying, let's have a partnership, let's have a tuition agreement, which was, formerly what I did. It's about, how do I help people find solutions to the problems that they're experiencing in workforce? Because it's not just EOU that's challenged in having workforce. When you have and live in a community where there are so fewer college goers, you have a harder time getting teachers, accountants, nurses, et cetera. And unless EOU is stepping up to be part of that solution, no one else will. No one else will. So that's about that. That I think is reflective of the community. And then student development. There's so many wonderful things I could share with you. But one of the things that our counselors do is they have to travel much further than others to recruit. As I mentioned, that geographic isolation means there's a lot of, kind of John Bon Jovi wheels on the ground, like driving, flying, going all over the place. And so what we've tried to do is have people, remote work is accepted here. Right. So you can, for example, our current interim admissions director normally lives in Portland, comes down here a few times a year, and he recruits for us in Portland, right? And then we have other individuals who focus on other regions, but we're mostly focused on our area. The one thing that never changes about a regional university is that most of our students live near us. And so we do focus, on the geographic region of Eastern Oregon. But I have a special surprise for you, one that just thrilled me when I became president, and that is that our fourth and fifth largest transfer institutions are the College of Marshall Islands and the Community College of Palau. We have this really great stream of students from Micronesia that adds so much just kind of wonderful culture and influence to this small Eastern Oregon community. And generations of college goers from those nations have come here. And so we've sort of just developed this niche of rural that extends across the global world.
Can I make you put on the historian hat? Do we know what the seed of that relationship was? Like, how did that start?
Yeah, I believe a former Palauan president actually attended and got his degree at EOU. And so trust building has been a part of that. And of course, all relationships have cycles of ups and downs. And I think, always working through those issues and making sure that they know we're still here and visiting once a year. And we have an amazing, amazing associate vice president that reports to me, who's from Palau Community College, grew up in Palau, and maintains those connections too. But student to student, there's just that as students return or decide to stay here, there's that transfer of knowledge about us. That's, really the best recruitment is good news about the university spread individual to individual.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the enrollment flywheel, and if you don't have outcomes at the end of that journey to cycle back into the top of the funnel, it's a lot harder to recruit people. So it makes a lot of sense. One of the things I was curious about, and there's a little bit of a personal interest here in terms of the job that I do, is you talked about remote work, almost like expanding your world in a way. And you talked a lot earlier in the conversation about sort of these like twin worlds. You've got the online and you've got the in-person. Are you using online at all to support the in-person experience? Because all of a sudden that can tap into lots of other instructors?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. The truth is the online student experience and the online student budget is what funds the on-campus experience. And that's increasingly the case for any regional university who has a footprint on that other side. It's expensive. An on-campus experience is expensive. And again, given our geographical position, the on-campus has to fuel that. And of course, we do have instructors across the nation, though arguably that's happening everywhere at this point, right? Arguably that happens everywhere. Our on-campus, we are committed to continuing an on-campus presence. And so obviously we do need our faculty living local, but we do lean into our online instructors to support both the on-campus and the online experience.
What is next in the next 2, 3, 5 years? What's ahead for Eastern Oregon?
We have some exciting stuff in the works. The first is an adults in custody education program. In my first year here, the Department of Corrections in Oregon asked me to deliver some educational programming to the 4 correctional institutions in Oregon. So I visited along with a couple of deans to just kind of check out facilities, check out interests, and, more than anything, just make sure that this is not the state imposing on the correctional institutions, but I want to work with partners who want to do what, I want there to be a marriage of interests. And so what we found was, really an eagerness. Our partner at Treasure Valley Community College is delivering the associate's degree, and there are people ready to advance. And we got to meet some of our adults in custody in Oregon and what these degrees mean to them. How impactful education is. I mean, if you ever want to see a microcosm of the truly transformative power of higher education, have a conversation with someone who's incarcerated who is working towards a degree. The behavioral problems disappear, focus emerges, and that's because there's hope.
Yeah.
All of us need hope, even incarcerated individuals. And so we've been working on our first program over in Snake River, again, with our partners at TVCC, hoping to deliver some programming. We're hoping to get past, we're almost past the accreditation, our accreditors looking at it, and then hoping the federal government will be able to take a look at our application so we can deliver that just as soon as possible. The correctional officers that we met with, everyone just wants to get this in place, and we want to do the same. Other things we're working on, I mentioned the kind of culture of the university. This is something that is ongoing. Funding for the university, we've sort of kind of danced around this, but funding has gotten more and more difficult as we're increasingly seeing that political bifurcation of ideas about higher ed. So I'm spending a lot of time right now just advocating for purpose in funding. As demographics across the United States start to suggest that there's going to be fewer college-going students, does that mean that we're shrinking access? Does that mean that students in Eastern Oregon can't seek out a theater degree anymore? When are the states going to step up? We've already seen that massive shift in funding, and we're now in, to me, what is a very kind of devastating conversation where there's a circle of blame about student indebtedness, but no one's providing a solution. And so I think, just engaging in ways to try and keep tuition low through advocacy is just a real important thing to be doing right now, especially as the Pell appears more and more in peril.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything, Dr. Ryan, that we haven't talked about yet that you wanted to share in this conversation or that you think is important for us to know?
Yeah, I guess we should probably talk about the elephant in the room, that this is a time of really great uncertainty for higher education. And, I guess I just want to share, my deep appreciation for my colleagues across the United States who are meeting this moment with patience and kindness and compassion and advocacy. I know we can do better. And I'm just, super hopeful that through our influence over things that we can advocate on and, taking action to support our students, that, we can create a kind of brighter vision for higher ed in the coming years.
Mm-hmm. We are absolutely in a moment of transformation. And like you said, the leaders that are meeting it with that kindness and patience and openness to, okay, this is just another stage of our evolution as an industry and what we do through our work. So yeah, and it is an elephant in the room. There's no doubt about it. That's for sure. Charlie, anything that you would want to add before we start to wrap up here?
No, I think my laundry list of questions has been exhausted.
I thank you for bringing them. It was nice of you to bring that. You had mentioned the rally in the valley, which was like a kind of lightning moment for our campus and community in our pre-conversation. And I guess I would share that just kind of like as a closing remark. One of our faculty unions organized this rally in the valley for funding. That was such a nice moment for our community to come together about something we agree on, which is that higher ed needs more funding. And we all have to work together as a university to do that. And I think the more that we have moments like that across the United States on the things we can agree on, I think the better off we'll all be in navigating this uncertain moment.
Absolutely. Well, Charlie, before we do our closing remarks and wrap up here, I want to give you a chance for those folks listening to learn a little bit more. When I introduced you, I said you're the Vice President of Partnerships at Rise. Can you tell us a little bit more about Rise and what you do and what your purpose and mission is?
Yeah. Rise is the fastest, most affordable way to launch new programs. We developed a consortium model. We call it program sharing. So 100 small colleges share online curriculum to create hybrid degrees that blend the existing catalog with a set of online courses from the collective. And our colleges use those programs to grow enrollment, to manage their costs, and to better prepare students for great careers. And in terms of our mission is to provide a pathway to fulfilling employment for every student. And I think that really comes from us having been incubated on a small college in Adrian, Michigan, where all of this sort of grew up from. So we've been around for about 6 years, and we are continuing really to focus on the small college ecosystem.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And Dr. Ryan, of course, thank you for sharing your energy, your passion, all about Eastern Oregon University and the work that you're doing there. I know I learned so much, and it was inspiring to hear from a president that is leading with their heart, and just the work that you're doing for your team and your students. So,
well, thank you for giving me space to brag about yo-yos.
Of course,
nice
of course. Yes. Thank you all for listening to this episode of the Ed Up Experience podcast. My co-host, thank you, Charlie, Vice President of Partnerships at Rise. Thank you for being here. And our guest, of course, Dr. Kelly A. Ryan, President of Eastern Oregon University. We will be back with another episode soon here at the Ed Up Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Until then, have a great day. We'll see y'all soon.
Did you buy your tickets yet? Join us on Saturday, July 12th at the University of Illinois Chicago campus for the inaugural Higher Education Podcast Conference. Get your tickets today at higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com. Support the podcast trusted by higher ed leaders. Get early, ad-free access, and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe for only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com.